It's good to be here in this day, allowing all that's in body and mind and heart to be brought forth. And there is an opportunity to allow something new to occur. This newness is, as far as the world is concerned, unprecedented. And we're entering and have the opportunity to enter the golden age. Golden age of consciousness, golden age of life. This requires each one to be more present as to what they're creating and how and where the source of power is for creation. All too often, man has been preoccupied with the sense of self, the sense of individual life, ignoring altogether that which is beyond, which includes all the world, which includes a wholeness, a unity. Unity is the true nature of this planet, oneness. But the oneness cannot be resolved with the differences of nationality and identity, all the things that keep mankind apart. The oneness really is dependent on the individuals who come into a larger sphere of identity, and also something that they can see the whole world in a different way. We can no longer be in an exclusive type of environment in our worlds, exclusively on our own. We're called to play a better, more fulfilling role in seeing how the world interacts with us as individuals, how the world interacts with us as a collective, the collective of humanity. The collective of humanity is 6.9 billion people, all divine beings, all here for the same reason, to allow something to break through in consciousness. And the breakthrough in consciousness requires an absolute awareness of the wholeness. Because until we can get into the place where the wholeness means something to us as individuals, there is no possibility of seeing the wholeness for humanity. We are ultimately scattered on earth, and have been for thousands of years, with no vision of what oneness might be, the source of oneness. Even though people profess to love God and say God is the source of oneness, these are ideas that keep them apart from other people, because other people use different words, and so the words and the semantics start to interfere with everything. But there is a truth of oneness. There is a reality that there's a connection to ourselves, to all people. We're part of a world where everything connects through us. There's often an opportunity to see this and to feel it and to recognize it. But most people ignore the signals. Being too preoccupied with the individual life is part of that. But this hasn't worked. All that it's done is created war and disharmony on earth. There needs to be a new recognition of something else, a recognition that the oneness is more important to us as individuals, and subsequently the oneness is more important as far as we're concerned, instead of creating another type of exclusive thing. Exclusivity only starts to lead to some sort of bias, some sort of feeling in the people who are exclusive that they're perhaps superior than others. A sense of superiority complex has existed between East and the Western world. Mankind in the Western world, the so-called developed countries, have looked upon the developing countries and thought of themselves as being superior. It's like a flip side of the coin. It's all one coin. It's all people, all on earth, attempting to live in harmony, attempting to live in life day after day. The golden age is an opportunity for such a thing to occur, where there's peace amongst both sides, where there's peace between men and women, there's peace between people and cultures, because we transcend cultures. We transcend the dogma of the individual systems as they go on. All the things of differences are part of, to some extent, subcultures. These subcultures are like little self-operating systems. In the world of mankind, we have a lot of subcultures. When one looks at an individual who's born out of subcultures and has a tendency towards identification with the subculture, there's a tendency towards insanity. Because insanity really is trying to do the same thing over and over again in the particular subculture or way that it's done, at the expense of seeing the whole. The little part of consciousness that attempts to retain its identity separate from the whole is ultimately insane. It cannot separate itself from the whole. There is no individuality that can maintain itself separate from the whole for the long run. People eventually die and go back into the wholeness, although they don't understand the wholeness in life, so they don't understand the wholeness as they approach death. What if we started to look at things a little bit differently? What if we looked at things in a way that, as individuals, we recognized what wholeness is, what the oneness is, and our identification with the wholeness, our identification with oneness. There's a bond that we all share on earth. This bond is we're all on the same planet. It seems like a large planet. That's just because we're such surfacey creatures. We're caught in the particular strata of consciousness here, which is on a very surface level, separate from most everything else. We cannot access as a culture the deeper ramifications of the oneness. We cannot see as of yet the impact that we have on nature, and subsequently those far-reaching impacts that nature has back on us. Because if the pollution, whether it's through nuclear waste or anything else, affects nature, ultimately that's going to come back to haunt mankind. All of the things that man does comes back to mankind. But it's, again, a very surfacey type of experience because it doesn't reach very far. It doesn't reach into the solar system. But the oneness of mankind has the potential to reach into the solar system. The earth has the potential to transmit into the rest of the solar system. It's part of consciousness. We're transmitters. The earth is a transmitter of a particular frequency and sound. The sound has been a cacophony of noise. Everybody making their own noise, individuals, collectives, groups, nationalities, all creating their own sound. But these are subculture sounds. The real sound that has the potential to emanate from the earth is the sound of peace, the sound of harmony with life, the sound of harmony with nature, and the sound of harmony that exists between our planet and other planets. There's not some bad planet out there attempting to inflict their order on Earth, although that's a popular theory and idea. Really, the planet that we need to be more concerned about is our own, instead of aliens out there. Because the consciousness of Earth has been out of step with the rest of the planetary bodies. The order that is established by reason of Earth sounding the pure tone of life, the pure sound of peace into the universe, would be far different. It would have a different effect on how our planet moves through the solar system. In conjunction with all the other planets, with all the other bodies, the moons and the asteroids and the suns, all of the other things that go on all around us. And these things are musical, just as much as our day-to-day lives are musical. If we make music and it's in the state of noise or discordance with other people's music, and we find there's a noise going on around. But if we can learn how to harmonize, learn how to sing the same song, bring in the same tone, allow something more creative to occur, then the sound that emanates from Earth, the sound that emanates in our lives ultimately, can be more harmonious with those things around us. But it starts with exemplifying and revealing what is the sound in ourselves. Getting clear what that sound is, having a vision of what that frequency and sound is. Because we're so used to the noise that goes on around that we listen to the news and the reports of war, and we think, okay, that's the sound. Terrorism and fear and everything else. Financial things, collapse perhaps, all noise. But beyond the noise is sound, not a silent sound, but the sound of peace. And we each on the planet long for the sound of peace. And if there are people that are creating any other sound, it's by reason of the fact of being and paying for and profiting from something other than peace. Or ultimately everybody on earth wants the same thing. Peace. Peace in their lives. When we reach the sound of peace in our life, then we extend into the world an influence of that sound. When we reach the sound of influence of peace, then peace starts to be sounded in the world again. And the discordant noise of all the cacophony of something else starts to fade into the distance. And we learn how to harmonize with others. And sound of harmonizing with other people's sound is much easier on our body systems. We recognize this from books like Truth Out of Water, that words and sound affects water, and over 90% of our body being water. Again, the sound that we emanate is important, because we're like little amplifiers of sound. We carry around the personal sound that we have in our heart. We sound it into the world all around, complaining about this, complaining about that, trying to find something better and more important to complain about. And this gets to be a usual frequency that mankind's used to. Complaint. complain about all the things that go on around, blaming somebody else for the lack of harmony, someone else for the